Okay, it's January 20th of 2021, and today is Inauguration Day with a new administration. And so this marks, just like with every incoming president, it marks an opportunity to chart a new course and to realize the need for liberty and freedom in this country as it's embodied in our Constitution, it's embodied in our civil rights, but yet that isn't the direction that this country's been going for a few decades, longer if you want to get technical, but I'm going to stick with the last few decades, and it doesn't matter Democrat, doesn't matter Republican. I know some of you might believe that, not the case. If you haven't noticed, it was both Republicans and Democrats that don't want this guy freed. Sitting in solitary confinement in Britain for what? Telling the truth? For letting us know what our own government is doing in our name? Repugnant, guys. This is free press, okay? Assange hasn't had to retract a single story, any information that he has brought to the public, not a single time. All of it's true. All of it's been true. And guys, I don't want to live in a country that lacks transparency like this one does, like most governments do. All right, we should be setting a different example. We should be on a higher plane. And if any of you are under any kind of delusion that somehow a Democrat president, a liberal mindset, a progressive direction, doesn't matter, guys. A lot of the stuff that Assange put out there was not only about the Bush administration and what they did in Iraq, once again in our name, but also the Obama administration and some of the horrible things that were committed by that administration. Trump had an opportunity to pardon him, didn't do it. Lack of courage. Absolutely disgusting. Whatever. And this guy coming in isn't going to do it because he's as dirty as the rest of them. Been in politics for over 45 years. So, you know, any of you that are under some kind of delusion that, like I said, delusion again, that somehow things are going to change. No, we're gonna get back to what we were doing pre-2016, which is more than likely getting into another war somewhere. You know, just back to a blueprint of globalism. The only thing that's going to be a very diverse administration that is going to be doing all of these evil, negative, nasty things. And some of you may not like that. Too bad, guys. I am so anti-war. I am so anti-globalism when it comes to us prancing around the world, destabilizing it, when it is the opposite of who we should be as a people. We are a republic. We're not an empire. And you know, that is the one thing I did appreciate about the Trump administration is that they didn't start a new war. All right. That was a positive that I put in his column. This, not pardoning this guy, along with Ed Snowden, cowardice, caving to the threats from the House and the Senate, because all their dirty secrets this man has. And every one of those, just too bad. Okay, so what do we have to look forward to? Well, we have a different Secretary of Education, or we will. It has to be confirmed. He has to be confirmed by the Senate, which I think, you know, will happen quickly. And I will keep all of you apprised to any kind of changes, any kind of recommendations that are coming down. But I want to stress, and you know, I don't think a lot of you probably weren't in the group when the Trump administration entered in. I've made a lot of changes since then to the format. But one of the things that you need to keep in mind is that we have a bottom-up education structure in this country. It's not a top-down. And there's an attempt for a top-down, but then we have that bottom-up, and then it meets in that middle, which is the state education departments, and they don't know which way is up or down because they have requirements from the federal government that come with funding, which is the carrot, which is the threat. You know, you'll lose this money if you don't what we say. But then in reality, the true power with regards to education decisions in this country remain on your local school board level. And the reason a lot of things aren't working right and haven't worked right is because we have top-down requirements that come with money that aren't working. They're just huge boondoggle, experiments that we should be getting rid of. Every Student Succeeds Act is nothing but a repackaged version of No Child Left Behind, just with a little bit different verbiage. Comes with funding, still high stakes testing. We're still testing towards, tests, or we're still teaching toward tests. It's the same circular nonsense. We keep chasing our tail. But the one thing that government never gets rid of is a failing government program. They just don't do it. I don't know why. What they do is they reform it. They change its name, they throw more money at it, and the very people who befuddled the prior one are all in charge of implementation of the new reform, whatever you want to call it. That's government. It's usually every 20 years when they finally realize. So, every Student Succeeds Act hasn't been around that long. But it will, and then it will, we'll all recognize that maybe that wasn't a smart idea, and then reform it instead of just getting rid of it and letting our teachers teach again. Because once again, we have a bottom-up power structure, and that power structure is very much still there. So all these things like zero tolerance, yeah, there's some pressures coming from the feds that are attached to money. And that's why, so I can get into this in the future, guys. But, the guy that's coming in as president, back in the 90s, he was in charge of the crime bill, and the crime bill had provisions in it that then eked all this zero tolerance into our schools, and then it just became habit. It became part of the culture fabric. It became adopted by local school boards, and now they all love it. They love zero tolerance. And so, if you sit there and you want to know where all that stuff came from, well, look at the guy who's going to be your president today, because that's where it all started, with his big push for that crime bill when he was in the Senate. Okay? Now, some of you may want to sit there and label me. Guys, you can try to label me. I don't like either political party. I don't. What I like is liberty. What I like is freedom. What I love is individualism, because through individualism, we protect everyone, including our special populations. Now, I expect through education and through time, some of you will come to understand that, but some of you are really locked into this idea of this communal mindset that we've just got to sit there and sacrifice for everybody's benefit. And that just isn't, that's just not humanity. That's not the case, because you're taking away somebody's free choice by doing that and mandating that they act like who? Act like you? I mean, where are these definitions, and how is that going to end? But at the same time, if we properly educate people, if we teach them the correct principles of how to govern themselves, how to restrain their own passions, then at that point they can live in a civil society. Then at that point we can trust each other. Then at that point there's expectations, and at the same time consequences. By doing that, then people are on board with what needs to be done within a community. But being forced to do so at the point of a gun, or at the point of arrest, or at the point of losing property, losing businesses, that's just not the way to motivate people. And some of you have absolutely adopted that. But yet, you come to me with these questions, which is very ironic, about how the school is treating your child, and how there should be positive behavior reinforcement. What the hell do you think that individualism is? It's just positive behavior reinforcement. You're teaching people correct principles. You're educating people. You're raising the bar of their understanding. And then you're putting expectations within the community that they govern themselves, that they take personal responsibility for themselves with consequences if they do not. That's what we have laws for, which is what I do. I hold schools accountable when they don't do what the regulations say. But anytime you try to implement some kind of communal standard, meaning that you abandon the idea of individualism and you say that everybody needs to be, act this way. And in order to get that particular ideology or philosophy in place, you require guns, you require threats, you require force, you require aggression, then that isn't a good ideology. And that isn't anything that people will follow. People don't respect that. And people are oppressed by that. And it may work for a while. Fear works for a while. Doesn't work for that long, though. Because humans by nature want to live free. Humans by nature want to be left alone. And they want to live and have liberty. You'll find out. And I don't advocate for anything like that. I still believe we can save this country. I still believe that we can remember these principles of freedom, that over time humans have evolved in their thinking and abandoned those old ways of thinking. Know your history. Know that the state of human beings has not been free with the expanse of human history. It hasn't been free. It's just lived under different versions of slavery and oppression. This country is an experiment in the ability for people to govern themselves. And in that experiment, which is embodied in these founding documents, humans have evolved in their thinking, letting go of those old ways of thinking, to where freedom and rights have been expanded and given to people as humans have evolved and let go of those old ways of thinking. I mean, I think about the immense amount of progress that we've made as human beings in this country in getting rid of those old ways and where we are now. Change. Humans don't change on a dime, guys. They just don't. I mean, you have some deep-seated cultural and community mores that it takes a while to change people's thinking. And some of you don't have any patience for that. But see, that's where we need both sides. We need liberals and progressives. We need conservatives. We need both ways of thinking. And right now, there's a lot of people that don't believe that. They just don't think that there's any room at the table to join together to try to find a middle ground about how we chart our path forward. And that's a shame. But as we move into a new administration, then, I'll continue to hope that we remember that we want a transparent government on all levels. We don't need war. We don't need people in government having and establishing separate rules for themselves and then applying different rules to us. That's not how any of this should work. It's not supposed to work like that. We've allowed it to work like that. And as a consequence, we're losing our civil rights. Slowly. But we're losing them. How do you think that's going to end up for our kids that are vulnerable? Still optimistic, though.